Hello and welcome to Beyond the Line. I'm attorney LaConya Murray, the small business attorney, helping clients throughout the United States with trademarks, copyright, and business development solutions. How is everyone? We have a good one today. Something happened this week that I was not expecting. Maybe some of we do have some fashion gurus out there. I'm not one of them. Maybe they saw it coming, but I just didn't see this coming. Michael Kors acquiring Jimmy Choo. And, you know, Jimmy Choo, if you guys know, I might not be all into fashion, but I'm in fashion enough to know that Jimmy Choo is a luxury brand. It's a high-dollar luxury brand, and all the celebrities are wearing them, and if you get your girl a pair of Jimmy Choo, she's going to be forever grateful. Unless she's one of those ones who's not really into that, and she's going to be like, could have got me a computer. So... but yeah, and then you have Michael Kors, and I think at one point Michael Kors was a luxury brand, but now it's kind of accessible. You see anybody and everybody with the Michael Kors purse. So there you have two different levels there. And so what's interesting about this is actually something that we talked about in the blog that we did last week about, and that was a theme where certain businesses, certain brands were acquiring other brands, and sometimes there were smaller brands. In this case, I don't think Jimmy Choo is necessarily a smaller brand, but that's often the case what you see, and they're like, why would they do that? And people are wondering about, and I would be wondering as well, like, what is that going to do for the Jimmy Choo brand? What is Michael Kors going to do to it? And this may be totally unrelated, but I was really made me think about when the company that owns Burger King bought Popeyes. Like, my first thought was, oh my gosh, not the biscuits, not my mama biscuits, Martin. But no, not, you know. So you're thinking, like, when you see these brands buying other brands, and you know that one brand is known for something, and the other brand is not known for that, they're known for something totally different. Your first thought is like, what's going to happen? Are they going to change it? What? And this is the thing about acquisitions and people buying businesses. Oftentimes they do it as a way to enter into a market that they're not in. They're trying to enter into a market without doing all the legwork, without having to, you know how hard it would be for Michael Kors to try to make themselves or to create a luxury brand for themselves, because people know them as Michael Kors. People know them as the accessible brand. You know how much work and money and effort it would take for them to get into that luxury market? For them, it was easier for them to acquire a business that was already where they wanted to be. And I think that's a really smart move. You want to, it's something that you want. Sometimes you need to partner with people, or you need to put yourself in a position where you can buy into where you want to be. And I think as a small business owner, what that means is, this is really important as a small business owner. And let's just talk about small business owner, because I want us to get out of this mindset. Sometimes when we think about our business, we put the word small in it, and we kind to downplay what our role and position are in the market. I know for myself, I'm known as a small business attorney, and people were like, well, why do you want to qualify that? Why would you want to limit yourself in what you do? Because they're thinking small business. So a lot of times when people think small business, they think mom and pop stores, mom and pop shops. But that's not the case. Small businesses, according to the Small Business Association, they can have anywhere from 0 to 1,000 employees and make millions of dollars. Okay? So when we talk small businesses, that's the kind of small business we're talking about. We're not talking about the mom and pop stores, and those mom and pop stores are cool and great, but we want to take those mom and pop stores and we want to put them on corners, on every corner. We want to grow them. We want to have them online presence so that they're not just this mom and pop store. We want it to be something that they can actually leave for their children and their children's children. So when we talk about small businesses, we see ourselves in a different light, okay? And so what this means as a small business, as you're growing your small business, maybe you're not there yet, but you can see yourself there, and you're going to grow there, and you're going to be there. What that means is that take your time. And when I say take your time, I don't mean be slow. I mean just be persistent and be consistent in the market that you're in, because you never know who's trying to get into where you are. And if you can grow your business, if you can create systems, if you can create a name for yourself and your brand, then you are setting yourself up to be picked up by a bigger company. There's a book, what's it called? I will maybe have to put it in the comments, but there's a book, and a lot of times when you think about people buying businesses, you think of them buying businesses that offer products. But service businesses can also be acquired. And that can be to everyone's benefit, of course. If you're looking to transition to something else, you want to sell your business, and if someone's trying to get into what you're doing, they want to acquire your service business. But they can't do that unless you have it set up so that they can just walk straight into it. They're not just and your name is great. Our name is great, but it's also the system. So they're not just buying your name, they're buying your systems and everything that comes along with that. And we're going to talk, let's just talk about that and pause the calls for a minute. Because if you read last week's blog post, we talked about three different businesses who were acquired or sold at some point. And just shortly afterwards, they went and tried to use their trade name in their own venture. So part of this is like, what does this mean for the Jimmy Choo brand? So essentially what that means is now Jimmy Choo, the owners of them, are not going to be allowed, depending on the contract, more likely are not going to be allowed to do anything with that Jimmy Choo name. It's going to be owned by Michael Kors for them to say who can and can't use it and how it can be used. And this can be problematic for some people. So, and one of the examples in the last week's blog post was Amos from Amos Cookies. He was like a talent scout, and he went out on his own, and he really wasn't successful at that. So he fell back to what he knew, and what he knew was making cookies. And he became really fast, really popular, millionaire. But then I guess finances, he didn't have the right people on his team. He really wasn't keeping up with his numbers, because you have to know your numbers. It's great to have a team, but you need to know enough to make sure that your team's doing what they're supposed to do. At the end of the day, he ended up selling his business, ran through that money, and had to fall back on what he knew. Well, what did he know? Cookies. So he tried to open up another cookie store using, I think he calls it maybe Uncle Amos, and was quickly shut down. Because not only did he sign away the rights to his name, he also signed away the right to his likeness. He couldn't even put his face on the cookies that he was selling. And you have to be aware of the things that are in your contracts, what you can and cannot do, and what that means for you long term. And then it wasn't just him, it was also the founders of McDonald's. Most people, I didn't know this until I watched the movie The Founder. Love that movie. If you're looking for a great business movie, watch The Founder. Watch The Founder and take some notes, because it was amazing. I heard the Defiant Ones was good. I haven't watched it, but I think I'm gonna, if I find some time, maybe I'll watch it. But one thing about McDonald's was created by two brothers. This was back in the time when they had the car hops, where the people will come to your car and take your order and roll away and then roll back like 30 minutes later with your food. Well, McDonald's created this system where people would just walk up and get their order, and before they walked away, they would have their order. They would have their food. And Ray Kroc, he was like, this is nice. How are you guys doing this? And they took him in and they walked him around and showed him everything. And eventually, he became associated with them. He convinced them to create franchises. And he was over the franchise building. Watched the movie for the rest of it, but what I want to get to is, at the end, he felt like, I guess the brothers were holding him back, and he wanted to do more. So he ended up buying that company out, buying the brothers out, and taking their name. Now this is their name. This is their family name. And so they were still at their little flagship store, flagship McDonald's, and shortly after the deal was made, they got a cease and desist letter. Why? Because now Ray Kroc owned that name, McDonald's, and they could no longer use it. And so, they weren't even thinking about that when they signed that contract. One, they were kind of bullied into it. But two, that's something that they weren't even thinking about. And when you're going into business, when you're reading contracts, you have to go in there thinking about your long-term game. Like, what does this contract mean for what I'm doing now and what I want to do tomorrow? You have to think about things like that. And another point of that story, just real quick, since we're talking about the founder, one of the things that just really gets me when it comes to people in contracts is they have conversations with people and they'll talk, and then you have this contract here, and what you talked about is not in this contract. If it's not in this contract, I don't care how much talking you have done, if it's not in this contract, it's not going to be enforceable, because the courts are going to go by what's in the contract. So in this particular case, they had a handshake deal. I mean, y'all walk around doing handshake deals. They had a handshake deal that says, hey, we're going to give you royalties off the revenue. You're going to get a percentage of the revenue that we make. The brothers never saw it. Never, ever saw it. So just to be clear, you need to make sure that all your intentions are reduced to writing when it comes to using a contract. You need to make sure that you think about your long-term game, and you need to make sure that as you're building your business, make sure that you are being dominant in your field, in your market, because you never know who's trying to get into this market and is looking to do it the easy way, which is acquiring a company that's already there, already has a following, already has customers, versus trying to come in and start from the bottom up. Because I don't care how big you are, and when you're trying to enter into a market, it still takes work. Because people are used to seeing you in one light, and it's hard for people to see you in a different light, which is why there's so many acquisitions of small businesses. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me at Beyond the Launch, and I will talk to you later.